Hello, hello, hello. I hope you're all well. It's a couple of minutes to 7, so I thought I would go live now and then I can do a few things in the background whilst you're not looking at me on the screen. I'll come on the screen in a second. Thanks very much for joining me if you're here. This is the reboot of the Networking Retreat video show, which, according to Facebook, I was doing on Periscope 6 years ago, which makes me feel quite old. It's lovely to be back. It's lovely to be back live. If you're here, say hello in the comments and I will say hello back to you. Amanda Rollstone, first one in. You've got a missed call from me this afternoon. By the way, we'll talk in private. But thank you very much. You're here. It's good to see you. Thank you. And I'm just waiting for a few more people to join us. Hi, Sheena. It's good to see you as well. Do me a couple of favours, people who are watching, let me know whether you can hear me okay. When I come live in a minute, let me know whether you can see me okay. We had a few problems last week with that. Hey Dom, it's good to see you as well. Thank you for joining us. You and I are well overdue a catch-up. Which we really should have. Balm, thank you. Yeah, Sheena. Yes, one of the photos that I use is of Sheena holding the camera up, recording me live on Periscope. It was a long time ago. So, hey folks, it's really good to see you all. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to, when it comes to 7 o'clock, I'm going to go live and I'll answer any questions that you've got about networking over the course of the next half an hour or so. I want to talk about how to make sales from this thing, how to turn those conversations into sales, how to turn your piles of business cards into sales. But if you've got any questions for me, ask them in the comments below. Picking up on Sheena's comment, if you do want to share this anywhere, I'd be absolutely delighted. If anyone's got any questions, they need to talk in the comments live on here because they're the only ones that I will see. I'm going to go live any second now. That is by far the silliest thing I do when I'm playing around with the new piece of software that I've got here. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you all very much for joining me. Let me know in the comments whether there's any problems with the video, there's any problems with the sound or anything like that, because I won't know unless you tell me. Any shares, any likes, any hearts or anything like that will be massively, massively appreciated. And thanks so much, all of you, for joining me. I am recording this. This will go on YouTube. There will be a replay on Facebook. So if you've got anything, if you're not able to make it live, which is a real shame, I'll still try and answer your questions on the replay and in the comments as well. When we met on here last week, I talked about your networking 40 or 60 seconds and how to make sure that you were getting that right. I'm going to bring Chris J's comments up. Chris is my business partner, as well as running Bascule Disability Awareness. I need to get rid of that first, don't I? I need to work out how to get rid of the lower third, which I'll do in a second. Let me get rid of your comment for a second, Chris, and I'll work out how to get that bit off the screen, which I obviously don't know how to do. Chris, I'm going to interview you on here to talk about stuff. We've talked about this already, and I'll make that happen over the next few weeks. It stuttered a bit here. I hope that's stopped happening now. Last week we talked about how to properly prepare your 40 or 60 second networking introduction. This week, what I want to talk about, as much as I can, is how to make sales from your networking. It did this to us last week as well. I'll have to work out how to get this better. I'm going to keep persevering now. If it's just stop start, for those of you who are saying that it is, if it becomes unbearable, let me know and I'll stop and I'll come back and work out what I'm doing wrong. I've got a few what ifs, right? So many people turn up at networking events and decide that they want to make sales there and then without ever stopping to think whether the other people in the room actually want to buy from them. So many people turn up at networking events with a huge agenda, and that agenda is that they really want everyone else in the room to buy from them. Yes, I've gone with Amanda Ralston. I've gone with the delay. I'm dreadfully sorry if that's not working for people, which is embarrassing. But look, you guys are still interacting with me, so I think I'm going to keep going rather than going away and come back and just hope that that it works and gets better. And if it doesn't, I'll keep fiddling with the technicalities in the background at another time and make it happen. Let me know if it becomes unbearable. So many people go into networking events and their agenda is that they want to sell to everyone at the event. And so many people go in with that agenda and let that go onto their let that go onto the whole way that they interact with people. A load of networking events that you go to, not only is people's whole conversation about your I wish I could get rid of the lower third, which I'm going to try and do in a minute, Chris. Hold on for a second, and I'm going to get rid of there we go, and I'm going to bring Chris's comments up on screen because it made me chuckle. That's what a load of people do. Go to networking events and it's all about buy my shit. Why do you expect that everyone else in the room is there to buy from you? Went to a networking event this morning myself, and I followed up with a ton of people in the room since I was there, but my follow-up with those people hasn't been, here I am, what would you like to buy from me? My follow-up with those people has been, actually, genuinely, here you are. It was great to meet you this morning. I'd really like to introduce you to Chris J, because he works in charities, or he has worked in charities, and you work in charities. I'd like you to introduce you to my friend Stephen, because he's involved in property, and I know you are as well. Can you imagine how much better received those follow-ups are? Can you imagine how much better received those whole conversations are than me chatting to people and saying, would you like to buy my stuff? That's really interesting to me. So many people go along to networking events. I want to say hello to Danny Wallace as well. It's lovely to see you. Hello to Stephen. Hello to everyone who's been good enough to join us tonight. What if there wasn't an agenda? This is sort of controversial. So many people, when I talk to them about networking, when I talk to them about networking advice, reckon that you only ought to focus on the people in the room who are your target market. You only ought to focus on having those conversations which you know you can do something with afterwards. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation, Stephen. But what if people massively overthink, firstly, who they should be having those conversations with, and also what they should be having those conversations about? Something that I have found to a huge degree recently is that people, when they go to networking events, they hugely overvalue the people who they can't see, the mythical people at another networking event, the bigger businesses, and hugely undervalue the people who are right in front of them, the people who they're actually chatting to. Some of my biggest opportunities have come from the smallest conversations. But what about if those conversations that you had at networking events weren't all about you? What if those conversations were genuinely about the other guy? Chris J says, all of mine have been about learning, i.e. positioning yourself in a market that I'd like to position myself. It's when you have conversations with people at networking events, and certainly I've proven this time and time again and practiced it certainly this morning. What I'm interested in is, what can I do to help? Who can I introduce you to? And making time to make sure that I do so afterwards. Hi, Sally Green. It was lovely to see you earlier on today, and thanks for coming along this evening. You're someone else who I'll be interviewing right here in the coming weeks. But what if those conversations that you had both at the networking event and immediately afterwards weren't about you, weren't about trying to introduce your stuff? I think people get hung up at networking events because they really feel that they have to, sometimes during the time that they've got available, make sure that they talk about their stuff. People don't have the patience that I think they really need. Doesn't have to be years and years of patience, although that can help. But just accepting that if you've set everything else up right, which I'm going to come to in a second, that you really, really don't have to worry about forcing your stuff on other people whilst you're at the networking event itself. Let's talk about that. Before you go to a networking event, what are you doing to build your part? What are you doing so that when you walk into the networking event, at least some people in the room know who you are? I did a video specifically about this the other day, and it's become more and more important to me. I've been talking about social media now for over 10 years, and I've been told that I was wasting my time on social media. But something that social media has done for me in a huge way, and it can do for you as well, really simply, is that it's meant that before I turn up at a networking event, people know who I am. They know what I stand for. They know that I talk about networking and so on and so forth. Before, Stephen Lai says, conversations, there's a before, during and after. And thank you very much for joining us, Stephen. Before the conversation, what are you doing to pre-introduce yourself to people? What are you doing to make sure that your reputation precedes you? Look, one of the reasons why I got asked to write the book, which hardly surprisingly I've got immediately next to me as a prop, is that my reputation preceded me. When I turned up, the people who were the publishers of that book knew who I was. I'd put so much content out there over the years that those guys had sort of heard of me and wanted to find out who I was. Sheena Wyatt says that's so important and such a big part of your personal brand. I'm going to bring people's comments up on here. Hi, the wonderful Cressy. It's lovely to see you. And Sally from Oxfordshire as well. Putting yourself out there in as many places as possible makes it much more likely that people are going to have heard of you before you enter the room. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about becoming the authority of content, and that's something which I've lived since I first heard of Gary Vaynerchuk. Becoming the authority of content, talking about your stuff so much, talking about personal brand if you're Sheena, talking about CRM for property if you're Stephen, talking about happiness if you're Cressy. I'm going to have to go through everyone now, aren't I? I won't do it. But absolutely becoming the authority of content by talking about your subject, your niche subject on social media so much that when you turn up at a networking event, people have already got some idea of who you are. I have put myself out there to an extent that most networking events I go to now, at least some people in the room have heard of me. So my reputation precedes me. At the event itself, I show genuine interest in the other people in the room. Once again, that's something that's become a hallmark. That's something that's become really important. Rather than feeling that I need to talk about my own stuff, I show genuine interest in them. Cressy, I'm gonna put your comment up here on screen. I know everyone can see it, and Cressy says, but they don't really understand what I do. I'm going to take that down for a second, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. All the content that I put out there, and here's a lesson for you, Cressy, as much as for anyone else, is designed to make sure that people know what I do. What a lot of people don't do, I'll tell you what, as well as putting content out there about their niche, people don't package their offering in such a way that makes it easy for people to buy from them. So I put a ton of content out there so that people have got an idea what I stand for, what I talk about, the sorts of things that I do. I make absolutely sure that I have my LinkedIn, my Facebook, and any other social media set up correctly, and so should you, so that people know exactly what you do. When they've met you at a networking event, when you've been the nice person who talks about them, who shows interest in them, who maybe makes some connections to them, guess what? People will go and check you out. Before the conversation, help your reputation to precede you. Put information out there which makes it really clear. Write articles, do videos, do Facebook Lives like this. Do a podcast. All of these things are perfectly simple to do now, but most people won't bother. I don't like myself on video. I've talked about this before. This takes me some building up to do this sort of thing when I do it, but I also know how valuable it is. I quite like giving other people information as well. I quite enjoy that part of it, but I don't particularly like myself on video, but I know how important it is to keep doing it. Just quickly, if you've got any actual questions, pop them in the comments below and I will be happy to answer them during the evening. Never any need for you to apologise, Amy. It's lovely for you to join us for what you can. Any questions, pop them down below and I'll answer them along the way. The effort that comes with networking, most people think is about what they do at the event, but actually doing the before and the during and the after, as Stephen has mentioned, is so vitally important. Putting yourself out there before, building your reputation, getting people talking about you, putting content out there which would, thank you, Vanessa, that's very, very kind of you. Not how I think of myself at all. Vanessa says that I'm a natural doing this, not how I feel when I'm sat, or not how I feel in the 5 minutes before. At the networking event, I'm going to come back on script. Show interest in other people, be genuinely interested. I don't know where I've put my notebook, but I'm going to show you this. Sorry for all the scratching around. I was at a networking event this morning actually, and I met a load of people at the networking event, and there's my notes from meeting those people. And my notes from meeting those people, I've got other stuff written on there, which is why I'm not national secrets or anything like that. But I've made notes about the people that I've met there, their names, and I've written stuff. For example, someone does utilities for care homes. That's what he does. And one of my clients, Himanshu Tripathi, Himanshu specialises in software for care homes, so I can make an introduction. I make notes during the networking event so that I remember to do stuff. And I come to Chris J's question, which I think is really important. And I've been listening to some Gary Vaynerchuk stuff about this today, actually. Chris asks, how do you separate your personal and business Facebook? I don't. So if you look back on my Facebook post from the last couple of days, and this is relevant, you will see a bit of business stuff. I've been promoting this event tonight. I've been promoting this Facebook Live, and you'll see a ton of pictures of me out in Bournemouth and Swanage with my son Joe. Hi Joe, if you catch this on replay, it's been lovely to spend time with you the last couple of days. You'll also see I talk about music. I talk about the other stuff that I do. When I started in estate agency back in the 1980s, 1988, we were often taught to find something in common with the other person. Isn't it brilliant right now that actually people put the stuff that they have in common with you live out there on Facebook, on Instagram, so on and so forth? Chris, Jay, and I both quite like Iron Maiden, and I know a load of people will be laughing at us for that, but we're both into Iron Maiden. It's one of the many things that we've got in common. Stephen Light, who's here now, is very, very into 1980s culture. I was watching The Lost Boys the other night, Stephen, when I had nothing better to do. I remember this stuff. I remember the stuff that I've got in common. Amy and Cressy are from Oxfordshire. Sheena and I quite like food, and we quite like red wine as well. I don't separate my business and my personal Facebook, because these little bits in common might be the thing that someone finds that they've got in common with you. When we talk in networking about the meet, like, know, trust, these little things that we've got in common with people certainly help build up the know, like, and the trust as well. When we find that people have got stuff in common with us, we tend to trust them a little bit more. We feel like we understand them a little bit more. So I don't separate my personal and business Facebook, to answer the question. I don't try to. I really enjoy what I find I've got in common with people. Do you know what? I've absolutely loved Stephen's comment. Has just made me chuckle. I'm going to bring it up just for that reason. Stephen's talking about Karate Kid. I absolutely have loved seeing people's back to schools today, because I've seen my own family's back to schools. I shared my back to school photo from 1974 earlier on today, made a load of people chuckle. I shared something else today which made a load of other people chat. I was talking about the way that people approach me on LinkedIn. And that brings me back on script, doesn't it? Because that conversation which I had here on Facebook earlier on today, the two most things that I've had viewed on Facebook today, a picture of me in 1974 and a conversation about how people approach us on LinkedIn. So someone connected with me on LinkedIn this morning, and the first thing that they do was sent an obvious automated message to me, which, focused on an employer that doesn't exist because of the way that I've got my LinkedIn set up and so on. It just made no sense at all, but it was going straight into sales mode straight away. That was obvious. Isn't it a lot better? Don't you respond a lot better if instead of getting that sort of sales email as soon as you've met someone, how about, hey, it was brilliant to meet you this morning. Listen, I know you focus on charities. I really want to introduce you to my business partner who's also got a background in charities and I know works with some of them as well. Isn't that not just a much nicer approach, but what about an approach that actually has people read it, actually has people paying attention? I'm just going to read a couple of the questions in here. I'm going to read Sally Green's statement. I'm not sure there is a right or wrong way, so it's not the same for everyone. This idea of separating personal friends and business colleagues, I believe is more prevalent when people are in the corporate world where we want to keep our work separate. For people of, I'm going to say our world, because I know who I'm talking to tonight, at least the people who've commented. And if you haven't commented, feel free to pop a comment below and I will answer it if I possibly can. A lot of the time, and Sheena talks about personal brand more than I do, what we're selling often is us. So separating the business and the personal continues to make very little sense to me. This isn't new advice. I've been giving exactly the same advice since I got into Twitter in 2008 and only had one Twitter account rather than a business and a personal Twitter account. Do you think, I'm going to bring up Cressy's question. Can you tell this week I've got a bit more used to the software and I'm much more comfortable bringing people's questions up and that sort of thing. Cressy asks, do you think if people see you in a personal way, they are more likely to use you professionally? And it's a really interesting question, which I'm going to pick apart a little bit. Yes, I think if they like you and find that they trust you, they are more likely to use you professionally. Yes, you might shake off a few people who you don't have stuff in common with, who decide they don't like you for your politics. Yes, I do talk about politics on Facebook for some other reason. And actually, they might not have been the right clients for you in the first place. But here's the really important thing. I don't strategize about this. I don't put personal stuff out there because I hope that it will turn people into clients. I just put me out there. I've got much better at doing this. I've got much better since, 2 years ago when I had a bit of a shake-up. I've got much better at putting me out there and in the nicest possible way, not caring about what you think. I'm putting me out there. I'm putting advice out there about networking. I'm not doing this to impress you. That's the reality about it. Now, Chris, I absolutely don't blame you. Your mum's dinner is bound to be better than listening to me chatting. I don't think some of my school mum friends would enjoy my posts about marketing, nor my... Amanda, I'm going to disagree with you, which is really unusual. I usually agree with much of what you say. I honestly believe that there is more going on out there than we sometimes see. People are interested in our stuff. People watch reality TV, for God's sake. People are interested in our businesses. People are nosy. Business contacts probably would like to see you moaning about your ex. They genuinely would. And it builds us as a person. I, show photos and videos of myself down and dirty at the front of gigs, or out with Joe, or out with Patch, or out with George, or doing whatever I'm doing. I also moan about certain things that I see on the internet. I genuinely believe that when we're in this arena where the business is mainly us, that anything that helps people get to know us also helps them make the decision whether or not they want to work with us. And both is fine, because if they don't want to work with us, they were probably the wrong people for us. I'm going to get back on script. I did wonder when you said school hate mum friends, Amanda. I was trying to work that out. I'm glad you've pointed that out, that you didn't actually mean that. When we communicate with people after we've met them at networking, all of this stuff becomes really, really important. With the people who I met this morning at Hailsham and District Chamber of Commerce, and it was lovely to see all of you. Thank you for inviting me. Remember the half-life of enthusiasm. Immediately that I'd met them, they remember who I was. I followed up with each of them then, at that moment. I got in touch with them straight away, said hello to them, didn't try to sell them anything, but also connected with them on LinkedIn, commented on their posts and that sort of thing. I made sure I kept the relationship going in the moment when they remembered who I am, because by tomorrow, they won't remember. They'll have dealt with their own kids coming home from school and their own business getting back, etc., etc. The other thing that most people don't do, and I'm going to devote a whole episode to this as well, is they don't show people where the till is. They get scared of showing people how to buy from you. When I spend all of this time on social media, and I don't do much very strategically, but when I spend all of this time on social media, what I do is spot those people who are getting ready to buy from me. Without any embarrassment about that. Hey, Neil Giller, thank you so much for joining us. I've got a message from you from yesterday, I think, when I was away with my son, and I just haven't got around to. I was away with my son. I was spending time with him rather than replying to messages, which is cool, but I know I've got a message from you. When I do this without any embarrassments, I do spot when people are getting ready to buy from me. Those people who are paying interest in what you're doing, commenting on everything, liking everything, sharing your stuff, those people can become customers. Those people can become your best referrers. I do make a real effort to be really in touch with people who are paying attention to me. It makes perfect sense. You know, when you meet someone for the first time, talk about this a lot on stage, but I can do it on camera as well. If your network is sort of concentric circles, then I'm trying to work out where to move my hands that way so that they come on screen. If your network is concentric circles, they're sort of out there, but over time, people move closer and closer to you, and you can watch them doing it, liking your stuff on LinkedIn or Facebook, commenting, sharing, turning up on your Facebook Lives. You know, it's really, really flattering to me to see you guys here. You're busy. Your timelines are busy. The fact that you're choosing to watch this means a huge amount to me, and I really want to give you value. It also shows me that you're those people in my network who've moved closer to me, frankly. You've chosen to do that. So actually, you're the people that I should be spending time with. There are the lurkers as well. We need to think about this as well. There will be the people who are watching this, who watch everything that I do, that never comment. You've got the same as well. So the very final thing that you need to do is make it super easy for people to see the till. Make it super easy for people to understand exactly what you sell and how they buy it from you as well. I'm going to devote a whole episode of this to this because it'll take half an hour or so to talk about it. I want to devote a whole episode. I'm going to steal something that Stephen said earlier on. Networking and conversations are about before, during, and after. Think really carefully about what you do before you meet anyone. Build your reputation, build your profile so that people know who you are. Think about what you do during the networking event and put tons of effort into what you do after the networking event. Something I'm going to say, I'm going to stop speaking for a second. And if you don't already know the Networking Retreat app, I'm just about to introduce the Networking Retreat app to you and give you a little spin through how it works. It's completely free. I'm not selling anything tonight. I put a ton of networking advice in there, and you can interact in there and introduce your business and so on. Whilst I'm introducing the Networking Retreat app, if you've got any more questions, pop them in the comments below, and I will come immediately back to them just after we've done this. So here's the Networking Retreat app. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. So if you don't already have the Networking Retreat app, then you probably should. It's where I give a load of networking advice, and you can interact with other members in there as well, all completely for free. All that you need to do is go to your app store, either the Apple App Store or the Google Store. I'm on an Apple device, so I'll click on the Apple App Store, and once you're in there, you just search for the Networking Retreat, which you would have thought I can spell by now. There you are. The Networking Retreat, you'll be able to download it. I could click simply on open from here, but I won't. I'll go away from there. You'll see that I've got the icon down in the bottom right hand corner of my screen, and if I simply click on that, it brings up the Networking Retreat app, and the first thing you'll see is your feed, where anyone who's got it can post for free and talk about your stuff and get involved in the other conversations here. You'll see that there are a load of us already in there. Yes, it feels a bit like Facebook or LinkedIn without the distractions. It's a place of work. All we're talking about there is business and networking. If you go in here, you won't get dragged into the rabbit hole of mainstream social media. And this coming from someone who spends an awful lot of time on mainstream social media. You can get involved in anyone's posts on here. You can like them. You can comment on any of the posts in here as well. There's a post from the wonderful John Weiser. I post in there quite a lot. I give quite a lot of networking advice in there as well. Anyone can comment on anyone else's, or the little green button in the bottom right hand corner allows you to start your own post. And type whatever you want in there. You can put photos in there, videos, links, GIFs, links to your own stuff, whatever you want to put in there. You can. I'm going to cancel out of that post because we don't need to do that right now. The other things that you can do, the other exciting things you can do, you can message other members in here. There's my messages. And if you go to the three lines down in the bottom right hand corner, you can get to all of the other stuff. Something really interesting, by the way, is the resources section, where I put a ton of useful stuff, such as networking articles and documents, some stuff from the Networking Retreat there. I put a load of videos with networking hints and tips. There's tons and tons of stuff in there. Even my media appearances, in The Guardian, BT, HuffPost. That's just me showing off, basically. But all of that's in there as well. Events, if you want to have one of your events listed in here and sponsored, that can go in there as well. I've had sponsored events in there before for various other people. So if you want to talk to me about that, do so. But if you're not on the Networking Retreat app yet, I strongly suggest that you get there. I'm back. That's the Networking Retreat app, which, if you don't have it already, download it. It's completely free, and I'll talk to you in there as well as here. And I put exclusive content on there all the time. Couple of things I'm going to bring up on screen. Sally Green, you don't sound like a wicked witch at all. Do you know what the brilliant thing is about this? If there are people that you don't want to get closer to you, the more that you do of this, the more that you get a choice. Here's the thing. For a long time, I needed to sell to anyone because I needed to pay the mortgage and that sort of thing. How about getting yourself in a position where people approach you so that you can then choose, and you can choose the people that you don't interact with. So yeah, what I'm talking about now a lot of the time is choice, putting yourself in the position where the right people are attracted to you, the right people. So those people you don't want to get close to you, that's absolutely fine. Neil Giller raises, as he always does, a really brilliant point. What's my opinion on people wanting to connect, sell at you via direct messaging on social media? I think they're missing a massive trick, Neil. If you're that scared of talking to people, then get training on doing it and really think about whether you're in the right business. When you do something on social media, here's the problem, or using email. I talk about this a lot. If someone comes at me and asks me how much does it cost to work with me, to have me to speak, whatever it happens to be, and I deal with that on email or message, I pretty much only get one chance. What about actually picking up the phone to people? And instead of just giving them a blunt answer that they can say no to. How about having an actual conversation? Neil, you've asked me about how much it costs to work with me. What were you thinking of? What sort of thing did you want to achieve? How about having an actual conversation with people rather than firing at them on social media or email? I believe that people who do that are maybe a bit scared about talking about the money side of things. I know that's going to resonate with at least one person in the room. People get a bit scared about talking about the money side of things and hide behind messages. I think it's easier to deal with rejection if it's done via message. Maybe that's why some people do it. I believe, don't just think, I believe strongly you're much less likely to deal with rejection if you actually get good at talking about it. So there's my feelings on there. Amanda's got to go now because she's got to do Mum Taxi, and I'm very aware of that one. I'm going to toddle off in a second myself. You guys have given me loads of ideas to talk about next week. I hope I've answered your questions as well. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Look, Neil, Neil's talking about old school phone calls. Remember, before I go, right, remember that all of this, everything that we do, me doing this is a gateway to proper conversations with the people who might become clients, might become contacts, might become suppliers. Old school phone calls, to steal Neil's phrase, are so important. Actual conversations are underrated, undervalued, and they are absolutely the secret, the hack to a lot of people's success. Using this as a gateway so that you can actually talk to people, using networking, using social media to fast track actual conversations with people absolutely rocks, and people should do more of it. I've talked for about half an hour tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are busy, and I find it really flattering that you choose to come out and spend time with me tonight. I messed around on my little pieces of software, and I've got myself an intro and an outro which makes me smile. So I'm going to play that. Several of you on here really need to be interviewed on here. Let's make that happen over the forthcoming weeks. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, Jules. How lovely to see you pop up. And I actually introduced you to Stephen earlier on. So there's a connection that's been made today. Guys, thanks very much for joining me. I'll see you next week.